The last light of the twin suns was fading behind the mountains when David Webb heard the sound. It was not the usual noise of machinery or wind. It was something alive, something breathing in the darkness of the old mine shaft. David had worked alone at Remote Station 17 for 2 years. The job was simple: check the equipment, fix what was broken, send reports back to the main colony. Most engineers hated this posting because of the isolation. David loved it. No crowds, no noise, just him and the wild lands of Verdania. He grabbed his flashlight and walked toward the sound. The abandoned mine had been closed for decades. Nothing lived there except small creatures that came out at night. But this sound was different. It was heavy, deep, like something large was trying to stay quiet. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness. At first, he saw nothing but rock and old support beams. Then the light found Scales. She was curled against the far wall of the mine. A dragon, a Dracori, the species that shared this planet with humans. But she was small, much smaller than any adult dragon David had ever seen. Her scales were dull gray instead of the bright colors he was used to. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was shallow. David had learned about the Dracori during his training. They were proud creatures, strong. They lived in clans and valued power above all else. A healthy adult Dracori stood 30 feet long with wings that could block out the sun. This one was barely 12 feet. Something was very wrong. He approached slowly, keeping his hands visible. The Dracori could be dangerous if threatened. But this one did not move. She did not even open her eyes. "Hey," David said softly, "can you hear me?" No response. He moved closer and saw the marks on her body. Old scars covered her wings. Her claws were cracked and worn. She looked like she had not eaten in weeks. David had seen injured animals before, but this was different. This was not just injury. This was neglect. Years of it. David made a decision. He ran back to his station and returned with blankets and water. He worked through the night, covering her body to keep her warm. He dripped water into her mouth. He talked to her even though she did not respond. By morning, she opened her eyes. They were gold, bright gold against the dull gray of her scales. She looked at David with confusion, then fear. She tried to move away but was too weak. "Easy," David said. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is David. I found you in the mine. You were dying." The dragon stared at him. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough from disuse. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why did you help me?" David did not understand the question. "Because you needed help." The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. "I am Sura. I have lived 160 years. My clan left me here to die. It is our way. When we become old and weak, when we can no longer serve the clan, we are taken to a quiet place and abandoned. I am a burden. I have always been a burden." David felt something cold in his chest. Anger. He had heard rumors about Dracori traditions, but he had never believed them. How could any species throw away their elders like garbage? "That is not right," he said. "It is our way," Sura repeated. "I was born small. I could never fly like the others. I could never hunt like the others. For 160 years, I served my clan in whatever small ways I could. And when I became too old to serve, they brought me here. It is an honor to not burden others with a slow death." "It is not an honor," David said. "It is cruel." Sura looked at him with those gold eyes. "You are human. You do not understand." "I understand enough. I understand that you are alive. I understand that you can still think and feel and speak. That means you have value. That means you deserve to live." Sura was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "What will you do with me?" David had not thought that far ahead. He only knew one thing for certain. He was not going to let her die in this dark place. "I am taking you to my station," he said. "I am going to help you get strong again, and then we will figure out what comes next. Your people will not allow this. My people will not allow this." Then they can come tell me themselves. David spent the rest of the day moving Sura to his station. It was hard work. Even small for her kind, she was heavy, but David was stubborn. He built a ramp. He used his equipment to create a sled. Inch by inch, he brought her home. By evening, Sura was resting in the main room of Station 17. David had turned up the heat and made a bed of blankets for her. She watched him work with that same confused look in her eyes. "You are strange," she said. "Probably," David agreed. "No creature has ever done something like this for me." David stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Well, that is going to change. From now on, you are not alone. I do not care what your clan says. I do not care what anyone says. You are safe here." Sura did not respond, but as David returned to his work, he saw something he had not seen before. A small spark of light in her dull scales, a tiny sign of life returning. It was a start. 3 weeks passed at Station 17. David fell into a new routine: wake up, check on Sura, prepare food, work on repairs, check on Sura again, sleep, repeat. The first week was the hardest. Sura refused to eat. She refused to speak. She simply lay on her blankets and stared at the wall. David brought her water and food anyway. He talked to her even when she did not answer. He told her about his work, about his family back on Earth, about the stars he could see from his window at night. On the 8th day, Sura finally ate. It was a small meal, just some meat that David had hunted from the local wildlife. But it was a victory. David celebrated by cooking himself a proper dinner for the first time in weeks. "You are very strange," Sura said that night. David smiled. "You keep saying that." "Because it is true. No one has ever cared for me like this, not even my own blood." "Tell me about your clan," David said. Sura was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak. She told him about her birth. She was the smallest hatchling anyone had seen in generations. The elders wanted to leave her in the mountains, but her mother fought for her. Her mother died protecting her when Sura was only 10 years old. After that, Sura lived on the edges of the clan. She did the jobs no one else wanted: cleaning, carrying, serving. She was never allowed to learn to fly because her wings were considered too weak. She was never allowed to hunt because she was too small. For 150 years, she served without complaint, hoping that one day the clan would see her worth. They never did. "When I turned 160, the elders came to me," Sura said. "They told me my service was complete. They told me I had earned the honor of a quiet ending. I believed them. I walked into that mine and waited to die. I thought it was the right thing." David felt that familiar anger in his chest. It was not the right thing. It was murder. "It is tradition. Some traditions are evil." Sura looked at him with curiosity. "Humans do not abandon their old ones." "Some do, but most of us believe that our elders are precious. They carry wisdom. They carry memories. They connect us to our past. When my grandmother was old, my family cared for her until her last breath. We did not throw her away. We honored her." "Your grandmother was lucky." "No, she was loved. There is a difference." The next morning, David received a message from Director Holloway at the main colony. Someone had noticed the increased power usage at Station 17. Someone had asked questions. The director wanted to know what David was hiding. David told him the truth. The response was not good. Holloway ordered David to return Sura to the wild immediately. The Dracori High Council had been informed of the situation. They were not happy. They demanded that the human release their property. Property, that word made David sick. "You should do as they say," Sura told him when she learned about the message. "I am not worth the trouble I will cause you." "You are not trouble," David said. "You are my friend." Sura blinked. "Friend?" "Yes, someone I care about, someone I want to protect. That is what friends do." "Dracori do not have friends. We have clan. We have allies. We have enemies. But friends, this word does not translate." David sat down next to her. Then let me show you what it means. Over the following days, David ignored every message from the colony. He ignored the threats from the Dracorai Council. Instead, he focused on helping Sura heal. He examined her wings and found that the damage was not permanent. With proper care, she might actually be able to fly. I have never flown, Sura admitted when David told her this. What, never? My wings were considered defective. I was forbidden to try. David looked at her wings. They were smaller than normal, yes, but they were strong. The muscles were there. The bones were solid. Whoever had told her she could not fly was wrong. We are going to change that, David said. How? I am an engineer. I fix things. And right now, you are the most important thing I need to fix. 1 month after the rescue, David filed official papers with the human colonial government. He requested formal adoption rights over Sura. Under human law, any person could adopt a dependent being regardless of species. If Sura was his legal dependent, the Dracorai could not claim her. The colony administrator thought he was insane. The Dracorai Council called it an act of war. Director Halloway threatened to fire him. David did not care. Why are you doing this? Sura asked him that night. You are risking everything for a broken old dragon who cannot even fly. David took her claw in his hand. Her scales had begun to brighten over the past weeks. Gold and blue colors were returning where there had only been gray. Life was coming back to her. Because everyone deserves a chance, David said. Because where I come from, we do not give up on people just because they are different. Because you are not broken, Sura. You were just surrounded by people who could not see your worth. Sura did not respond with words, but for the first time since David had found her, she moved closer to him. She rested her great head near his shoulder and closed her eyes. It was the first time she had chosen to trust anyone in 160 years. And David promised himself he would never betray that trust. The shuttle landed outside Station 17 on a cold morning. David watched from his window as 3 figures stepped out, 2 humans and 1 Dracorai. They are here, he told Sura. She lifted her head from her blankets. Over the past 6 weeks she had transformed. Her scales now shone with deep blue and gold colors. Her eyes were bright. She had gained weight and strength, but the fear never truly left her. The council has sent someone, she said quietly. They will take me back. No one is taking you anywhere. David opened the door and stepped outside. The cold wind hit his face as he walked toward the visitors. The first human was Dr. Amara Okonkwo, a physician from Port Callaway. David had requested her help days ago. The second human was Ben Foster, a trade representative who worked between the species. The third figure was a massive Dracorai elder with dark red scales. His name was Varkos, and he represented the council. David Webb, Varkos said. His voice was deep like thunder. You have caused much trouble. I saved a life. That is not trouble. You have interfered with sacred traditions. You have stolen clan property. The council demands the return of the one called Sura. David did not move. She is not property, she is a person, and she is staying with me. Varkos snorted smoke from his nostrils. You are brave for a small creature, but bravery will not save you from the consequences of your actions. Before anyone makes threats, Dr. Okonkwo interrupted, I would like to examine the patient. That is why I am here. Varkos looked at her with contempt. What can a human healer do for a Dracorai? Let me show you. They entered the station together. Sura pressed herself against the far wall when she saw Varkos. The elder studied her with cold eyes. She looks better than I expected, he admitted. Usually they die within days of abandonment. Because no one helps them, David said sharply. Dr. Okonkwo began her examination. She used human medical equipment to scan Sura's body. She checked her heart, her lungs, her bones, her wings. The process took over an hour. When she finished, She turned to the group with a strange expression. "This is remarkable," she said. "What is it?" David asked. "Her health problems are not from age. They are from neglect, malnutrition, lack of exercise, emotional trauma. With proper care, there is no medical reason she cannot live another century." Varkos made a sound of disbelief. "That is impossible. She is 160 years old. Our people rarely live past 200. "Maybe that is because you abandoned them at 160, David said. The room went silent. Varkos stared at David with something that might have been anger or might have been shame. It was hard to tell with Dracorai. "You speak dangerous words, human." "I speak the truth. Sura is not dying because she is old. She was dying because her clan threw her away like garbage. Look at her now. Look at how much she has healed in just 6 weeks. Your tradition is not about honor. It is about convenience. It is easier to abandon the old than to care for them. You know nothing of our ways." "I know enough. I know that every species in the galaxy has dark traditions. Humans have done terrible things throughout our history, but we learned. We changed. We decided that life has value, all life, not just the strong and the useful. Your people can learn too." Sura spoke for the first time. "He is right." Everyone turned to look at her. She stood slowly, her blue and gold scales catching the light. "I served the clan for 150 years, she said. "I cleaned their homes. I carried their supplies. I watched their children. When the Great Flood came 60 years ago, I was the one who warned everyone. I saved 300 lives. And do you know what the elders said afterward? They said it was lucky that even the weak could be useful sometimes." She took a step toward Varkos. "I was never honored, I was never thanked. I was tolerated until I became inconvenient. Then I was thrown away. Is that the tradition you are so proud of?" Varkos had no answer. Ben Foster cleared his throat. "The adoption papers have been processed. Under human colonial law, Sura is now legally recognized as David Webb's dependent. Any attempt to remove her by force would be considered an act of aggression against human citizens." "This is manipulation," Varkos growled. "This is protection," David replied. "Something your people should have given her a long time ago." The elder dragon stood in silence for a long moment. Then he turned toward the door. "The council will not accept this. There will be consequences." "Let them come," David said. Varkos paused at the threshold. He looked back at Sura with an expression that was difficult to read. "You should know," he said quietly. "There are many young ones who disagree with the old ways. Your story has spread. The video of your healing has been seen by thousands. Things may change because of you." Then he was gone. That night, David and Sura sat together watching the stars through the station window. The twin moons of Verdania cast silver light across the landscape. "Do you really think things will change?" Sura asked. "I do not know, but I know this. Change does not happen all at once. It starts with one person refusing to accept the way things are. Today, that person was you." Sura rested her head near his shoulder. "No, today that person was you. You refused first. I just found the courage to follow." David smiled. "Then we will change things together." The wind was perfect. David had spent 3 days calculating weather patterns, studying air currents, and building the support harness. Everything was ready. The only question was whether Sura was ready too. They stood at the top of Windridge Cliff, overlooking a valley that stretched for miles. The morning sun painted everything in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful, but Sura was not looking at the view. She was looking at the edge. "I cannot do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can." "David, I have never flown. Not once in 160 years. What if they were right? What if my wings are truly broken?" David walked around to face her. He placed his hands on either side of her great head and made her look at him. "Listen to me. Dr. Okonkwo examined your wings. I examined your wings. There is nothing wrong with them. Your muscles are strong. Your bones are solid. The only thing that stopped you from flying was fear. Fear that your clan put inside you. But what if I fall? Then I will catch you. Sura made a sound that was almost a laugh. You are small. I would crush you. Then do not fall. Prove them wrong. The harness David had built was a simple thing. Straps that wrapped around her chest and wings, connected to a long cable that ran along the cliff. If she started to fall, the cable would catch her. It was not elegant, but it would work. David helped her into the harness. Her whole body was trembling. He could feel her fear through her scales. 160 years of being told she was weak. 160 years of being forbidden from even trying. That kind of damage did not heal quickly. I want to tell you something, David said as he checked the final straps. When I was born, I had a problem with my heart. The doctors said I would never be strong. They said I could not run. I could not play sports. I certainly could not become an engineer working in space. Sura looked at him. What did you do? I did it anyway. I trained harder than everyone else. I studied more than everyone else. Every time someone told me I could not do something, I used it as fuel. I made myself strong not because I was born that way, but because I refused to accept their limits. He stepped back and looked at her. The people who said you could not fly were wrong. They were scared. They were protecting their traditions instead of protecting you. But I am not scared. I believe in you. Now it is time for you to believe in yourself. Sura closed her eyes. For a long moment she did not move. Then slowly she opened her wings. They were beautiful. Smaller than average, yes, but perfectly formed. Blue and gold membranes stretched between strong bones. They caught the sunlight like stained glass. Tell me what to do, she said. David walked her through the basics, how to catch the wind, how to angle her body, how to use her tail for balance. He had studied flight mechanics for weeks. He knew the theory. Now Sura had to put it into practice. The first attempt was a disaster. She leaped from the cliff, spread her wings, and immediately panicked. The cable caught her and pulled her back to safety. She was shaking so badly she could barely stand. Again, David said. I cannot. Again. The second attempt was better. She stayed in the air for 5 seconds before fear took over. The third attempt lasted 10 seconds. By the fourth attempt, she was gliding. But gliding was not flying. You are holding back, David called to her. Stop being afraid, trust your wings. Easy for you to say, she called back. You cannot fall. On the fifth attempt, something changed. Sura jumped from the cliff and spread her wings as before. She caught the wind and began to glide. But this time, instead of fighting the fear, she embraced it. She tilted her wings and felt the air lift her higher. She beat her wings once, twice, 3 times. And she flew. Not gliding, not falling with style, real flight. She rose above the cliff. She circled the valley. She let out a roar that echoed off the mountains, a sound of pure joy that David had never heard before. Tears fell from his eyes as he watched her. 160 years she had waited for this moment. 160 years of being told she was broken. And now she was soaring through the sky like she was born to do it. Because she was. Sura flew for an hour before exhaustion forced her to land. She came down awkwardly, stumbling on the rocky ground. But she was laughing, a dragon laughing. David had not known that was possible. I did it, she said. I actually did it. David hugged her neck. I knew you could. No, you believed I could. That is different. That is better. What they did not know was that someone had been watching. A young Dracorai from a nearby clan had seen the whole thing. She had recorded it on her communication device. By nightfall, the video was spreading across every network on the planet. A dragon who had been abandoned. A dragon who had been told she was worthless. A dragon who was flying for the first time at 160 years old, saved by a human who refused to give up on her. The galaxy was watching, and things were about to change. They came at dawn, 12 Dracorai warriors, each one larger than Sura had ever been. Their scales were black and red, colors of war. Their leader was called Karath, and he had served the council for 300 years. David saw them approaching from his window. He had known this day would come. The flight video had changed everything. Millions of beings across the galaxy had watched Sura take to the sky. Messages of support flooded in from humans, from other aliens, even from young Dracorai who questioned their traditions. The council could not allow this challenge to go unanswered. "Stay inside," David told Sura. "No, I will not let you face them alone." "Sura, please, these are warriors. If something happens to me, you need to run." She looked at him with those golden eyes. "I spent 160 years running, hiding, accepting my place at the bottom. I will not run anymore. Whatever happens, we face it together." David wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in her face. She was not the broken creature he had found in that mine. She was strong now. She had found her voice. They walked outside together. Karath stood at the front of his warriors. He was massive, easily 40 feet long with wings that could create hurricanes. His eyes burned with cold fire as he looked at David. "Human," he said, "you have insulted the Dracorai people. You have turned one of our own against us. You have spread lies about our sacred traditions. The council has sent me to correct this mistake." "There is no mistake," David replied. His voice was calm. "Sura was abandoned to die. I saved her. That is not an insult. That is basic decency. She was given the honor of a peaceful ending. You have stolen that from her." Sura stepped forward. "I never wanted that honor. I wanted to live. I wanted to fly. I wanted someone to see me as more than a burden. David gave me all of that. He is not the one who insulted our people. You are." Karath snarled. "Watch your words, little one. You are speaking to a war leader. And you are speaking to a dragon who has nothing left to lose. Kill me if you want. The galaxy is watching. They have seen the video. They know what you do to your elders. Every death you cause today will only prove that humans are right about us." The warriors shifted uncomfortably. Karath's eyes flickered to the communication devices David had set up around the station. He was recording everything. "This is manipulation," Karath growled. "This is truth," David said. "Something your council has been hiding for centuries." Before Karath could respond, a sound came from the direction of Port Callaway. David turned to see shuttles approaching, dozens of them. They landed on the plain surrounding Station 17 and humans began pouring out. Dr. Okonkwo was there. Ben Foster was there. Workers from the mining colonies, families from the settlements. Over 200 people standing in the cold morning air. "What is this?" Karath demanded. "This is what humans do," David said. "We protect our own." An older woman stepped forward. Her name was Ruth, and she had lived on Verdania for 60 years. "We saw what you did for Sura," she told David. "We saw how you stood alone against everyone who told you to give up. That kind of courage deserves support." More people spoke up. They told their own stories. A man whose grandfather had been abandoned in a nursing home on Earth, left to die alone. A woman whose mother had been cared for by her family until her final breath. Story after story of humans who understood what it meant to value the old, the weak, the forgotten. Karath looked at the crowd with confusion. "You would risk war over one broken dragon." "She is not broken," David said. "She never was, and yes, we would. Humans do not abandon our people no matter what it costs us." One of Karath's warriors stepped forward. She was young, barely 100 years old. "War leader, I cannot do this. The human is right. The video of Sura's flight moved me more than any council decree ever has. I will not attack unarmed people to defend a tradition that shames us." 2 more warriors joined her, then 3 more. Karath watched his forces split before his eyes. Before the situation could escalate further, A new shuttle descended from the sky. Elder Varkos emerged, his red scales bright in the morning light. "Enough," he declared. "Kareth, stand down. The council has reconsidered." "Reconsidered," Kareth spat. "They sent me here to end this. And now they are sending me to stop you. The galaxy is watching. Other species are questioning their alliances with us. Trade agreements are being reviewed, all because of one small dragon and the human who refused to let her die." Varkos looked at David. "You have caused more change in 3 months than reformers have achieved in centuries. The council is not happy, but they are not stupid either." "What does this mean for Sura?" David asked. "It means she is free, and it means the council has agreed to discuss the abandonment tradition. Not abolish it, not yet, but discuss it. That is more than anyone has accomplished in 1,000 years." Sura moved closer to David. "You did this. You changed everything." David shook his head. "No, we did this. You found the courage to fly, to speak, to demand better. I just gave you the chance." The warriors began to disperse. The humans embraced each other, and somewhere in the crowd, a young Dracorai was recording again. The fight was not over, but the first battle had been won. The great assembly hall had not seen this many beings in 500 years. Dracorai elders filled the ancient stone seats, their scales gleaming in colors of every shade. But they were not alone. For the first time in history, humans had been invited to witness a council judgment. David stood at the center of the hall with Sura at his side. "This trial will determine the fate of the one called Sura," announced High Elder Morath, the oldest Dracorai alive at 400 years. "And it will determine whether human values have any place in Dracorai tradition." David had prepared for this moment for weeks. He knew the council would ask one question: what worth does Sura have? The traditional answers would focus on strength, hunting ability, combat skill. Sura had none of these things. If David tried to compete on those terms, he would lose. So he would not compete at all. "High Elder," David said, "I request permission to present my case." "Speak, human, but know that your words carry the weight of 2 species. Choose them carefully." David looked around the hall. Thousands of eyes stared back at him. Dragons who had lived for centuries. Dragons who had abandoned their own elders to die alone in the darkness. "You ask what worth Sura has," David began. "Your tradition measures worth by what can be taken. How much can she carry? How far can she fly? How many enemies can she defeat? By those measures, Sura has little worth. She is small. She was forbidden to fly for most of her life. She has never fought in battle." Murmurs spread through the hall. The elders nodded. This was what they expected. "But I come from a different tradition," David continued. "Humans measure worth by what is given, not what can be taken, but what is freely offered. And by that measure, Sura has more worth than anyone in this hall." He pulled out a data pad and activated the display. Images and records appeared in the air above them. 160 years of service. Sura cleaned the homes of the wealthy. She carried supplies through dangerous territory. She watched over hatchlings while their parents hunted. She did the work no one else wanted to do, and she did it without complaint. The images showed document after document. Records that David had spent weeks gathering from old archives, from witnesses who remembered, from data that the clans had tried to bury. 60 years ago, there was a great flood in the northern territories. 300 Dracorai would have died if not for a warning that came in the middle of the night. Do you know who gave that warning? Sura. She had noticed the signs. She had tried to tell the elders, but they ignored her. So she ran from home to home, waking everyone she could, saving lives while the elders slept. The hall was silent. She was never thanked. She was never honored. The official records say the elders discovered the flood and warned everyone. They erased her from history because it was shameful for a broken dragon to save so many. David turned to face Sura. "This is your worth, not what you can take, what you have given. 160 years of service. 300 lives saved. Countless children watched over. And when your clan decided you were no longer useful, they threw you away like trash. Sura stepped forward, her voice was steady. For most of my life I believed I was worthless. I believed the things they told me, that I was small, that I was weak, that I was a burden. Then I met David. He did not see what I could not do. He saw what I could do. He saw me. Tears fell from her golden eyes. He taught me to fly. He taught me that worth is not measured in strength or size. He taught me that I deserve to live, not because of what I could give others, but because life itself has value. That is a lesson the Dracorai need to learn. High Elder Morath leaned forward. These are human ideas. They have no place in our traditions. Then your traditions are wrong, David said. And deep down you know it. Look around this hall. How many of you have lost parents, grandparents, friends to the abandonment tradition? How many of you have wondered if there was a better way? The humans watching this trial already know the answer. Now it is time for you to admit it too. The vote was called. One by one the elders made their decision, for tradition, for change. The numbers were close, too close, until finally Elder Varco stood. I have served this council for 300 years, he said. I have upheld our traditions even when they broke my heart, but I cannot do it anymore. I vote for change. I vote for Sura. I vote for a future where we do not throw away our people. The final count was announced. By a margin of 7 votes, Sura was free. 1 year later, David and Sura flew together over the mountains of Verdania. The world had changed. The abandonment tradition was being reformed. Other species were adopting new policies for elder care, inspired by a small dragon and the human who had refused to let her die. They landed on the cliff where Sura had first learned to fly. Below them, a new building was being constructed, the first joint school of Verdania, where humans and Dracorai would learn together. A young one asked me yesterday what humans are really like, Sura said. What did you tell her? Sura looked at David with those golden eyes that had once been so full of despair. Now they shone with hope. I told her that humans see worth where we see weakness. They find family where we see strangers, and they never, ever give up on those they love. David smiled. That sounds about right. They sat together watching the sunset, two beings from different worlds who had found something precious in each other. Family,